Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of the Desert. I'm Joni Padduck, your worship associate this morning, and I want to wish all of you a happy Father's Day, whether you're a dad, an uncle, someone who's nurturing a child in the role of a dad. Happy Father's Day. I am really honored to be serving this morning with my good friend Mel Wilkinson. I have really enjoyed working with her and collaborating on this service over the past couple of weeks, and I'm quite anxious to hear her sermon because I think there's 3 people in the world that have heard parts of it, but even her wife hasn't heard it. I would, at this time, like to welcome any non-shy guests, people that are returning or are just here for the first or maybe second time. If you would stand or put your hand up, and Bill will come around with the microphone. Please just give us your name and where you're from, and then we can get to know you during the coffee hour. So any non-shy visitors this morning? Either everybody's shy or there's no... I see some faces I haven't seen in a while, but... We won't bite. No. Okay. All right, well, thanks and welcome again. Now, as we begin, we acknowledge that we are on the historic homelands of the various bands of the Kauai people, and we honor the unique relationship that we hope develops between our community and the indigenous people and their traditional territories. Let this acknowledgement serve as a reminder to recognize, honor, reconcile, and partner with the Kauai people whose lands and water we benefit from today. And in this congregation, we welcome people of all sexual orientations and gender identities, of all ages and sizes, people of all economic statuses and professions, of all physical or mental abilities, people of all races and ancestries and cultures. We welcome you wherever you come from, whoever you love, whatever your immigration status or civic engagement. We welcome all those who will learn and grow with us as we commit together to embrace the rich and beautiful diversity of the world and to build a community centered in justice, compassion, and love. You are welcome here, and we're really glad you're with us this morning. There's only one announcement that I would like to make. This Friday and Saturday is the final performances of Script to Stage to Screen. Many of you know about Script to Stage. It's here in the sanctuary. It'll be Friday and Saturday evening at 7:30. Tickets are $10. You can either go to the Script, the number 2, Stage 2 Screen website and prepay on PayPal, or you can pay by check or cash at the door. The name of it is Room 5, Motel 6, and it's written and directed by a local playwright, Jason Hull. And if any of you have ever seen Jason's work, it's hilarious. He just has a way with words, and he's a great director. And so I think you'd really enjoy it. If you're up for a few laughs, join us either Friday or Saturday. And finally, if you'd like to be on our email list to learn more about us and our programming, please contact us at admin, ADMIN, @uucod.org. And now Mel will ring our Tibetan bowl to begin our service and then listen to our music for centering.
Good morning, everyone. This is from The Art of Happiness, a handbook for living by His Holiness the Dalai Lama. As Jane and I were cleaning up our home after having work done, I ran across a book that had been in my library for years. It was published in 1998, and I imagine I purchased it soon after. It is by the Dalai Lama, and it's called The Art of Happiness. The spine was as new as a baby's cheek, and the book was unmarked. Given the title of the sermon, I suggested to myself that I might have a go of it, finally. In this book, the Dalai Lama talks about attaining contentment and how we can achieve that elusive state of being. One method is to obtain everything we want and desire. All the money, the houses, the cars, the perfect mate, the perfect body. The disadvantage to this approach is if our wants and desires remain unchecked, sooner or later we will run up against something that we want but can't have. The second and more reliable method is not to have what we want, but rather to want and appreciate what we have. Working on our mental outlook is a more effective means of achieving happiness than seeking it through external sources such as wealth, position, or even physical health. Another internal source of happiness closely aligned with an inner feeling of contentment is a sense of self-worth. The systematic training of the mind, the cultivation of happiness, the genuine inner transformation by deliberately selecting and focusing on positive mental states and challenging negative mental states, is possible because of the very structure and function of the brain. We are born with brains that are genetically hardwired with certain instinctual behavior patterns. We are predisposed mentally, emotionally, and physically to respond to our environment in ways that enable us to survive. These basic sets of instructions are encoded in countless innate nerves, cell activation patterns, specific combination of brain cells that fire in response to any given event. The brain is not static, not irrevocably fixed. Our brains are also adaptable. Neuroscientists have documented the fact that brains can change into new patterns, new combinations of nerve cells and transmitters in the response to the new input. Our brains are malleable, ever-changing, reconfiguring their wiring according to new thoughts and experience. And as a result of learning, the function of individual neurons themselves change, allowing electrical signals to travel along them more readily. Scientists call this brain's inherent capacity to change plasticity. I call it flexibility.
And we can sing for a long, long time. And sing for a long, long time.
Thank you.
What a wonderful song. Thank you, Mel. Thank you for choosing that one. And now for our chalice lighting, you'll notice the words are a little different, and it is a little longer than we usually recite. But if you'd read along with me as Mel lights our chalice. Under the right circumstances, playing with fire is a delight. Imagine being gathered round a fire pit as the crackling flames invite us to sing, dance, and roast a marshmallow or two. Our chalice also invites us to play, rather than marshmallows. The flame encourages us to explore who we are, who our neighbors are, and where we are on our spiritual journeys. Today we light this candles in the spirit of play. Let us trust the light to guide us in this hour and in the days to come, finding joy along the way. And now Mel's beautiful wife Jane will come up and light the BIPOC candle, and if you could read along with me. We light these candles in solidarity with Black, Indigenous, and other people of color as we journey together towards spiritual wholeness. May we, as a beloved community, work to dismantle racism and all forms of oppression. May we live out our principles so that dignity and equity prevail. Thank you, Jane. The reading this morning is The Complex Feelings of Father's Day by Ryan Urey. Father's Day is an important time to check in with the complex feelings this day may evoke. The ideal of the wise, patient, loving, all-knowing provider was never more than a useful television trope. At its best, this ideal gives people a positive role in child rearing to aspire to, but at its worst, it casts patriarchy in a benevolent light as the natural order of things. And it also creates an impossible standard for new fathers to live up to that denies the messy, frustrating realities and constant failings that are part and parcel of parenthood. Sometimes it feels like Father's Day is more about enshrining a myth than it is about facing the realities of fatherhood that often fall so far short. For some of us, the story of fatherhood is about love, acceptance, guidance, but for others, it's a story of rejection, abuse, shame, or abandonment. For some, it is a story of nurturance, but for others, it is marked by frustration and resentment, a story of burdens and unrealized dreams. For some, fatherhood is the longing for children unborn or lost to death or estrangement. Many of us have no father story at all. Whatever your story and your feelings about having or not having, being or not being a father, we honor your unique experience this day. And I invite you to let your experience be what it is without measuring it against false ideals. While your Father's Day may be anything but a celebration, the force of this idea of father affects us all in one way or another. Let us take a moment to go inward and experience the thoughts and feelings we have around this concept of father. If what you're feeling is love, then I invite you to bask in that warmth and let it fill you. If what you're feeling is pain or rage, then hold it gently and listen as it wails its lament. If what you feel is sorrow, let yourself be slowly rocked by its waves. And if what you experience is the longing of a child abandoned, then cradle that inner child and offer it in the unconditional acceptance and love it yearns for. Blessed be. Oh, sorry, I'm still. Today, I lost my place, sorry. Today we're going to share the plate with the Palm Springs Animal Shelter. Many of you are familiar with the shelter, I'm sure. Their mission is to transform lives through extraordinary animal care and advocacy. Committed to being a humane and compassionate animal care and adoption center, the shelter does not euthanize for space or for length of stay. As a public, open admission shelter, they provide a safe haven for all animals, adoptable, those who require rehabilitation and training, and those requiring minor to critical medical treatment. To meet the challenge of compassionately operating a public shelter, the Friends of the Palm Springs Animal Shelter relies on donations, volunteers, community support, and of course, adoptions. As this is the final Share the Plate that was selected by our congregation for this calendar year, we hope that you will give as generously as you are able. And Bart Very, who's the Director of Development for the Friends of the Palm Springs Animal Shelter, is here to tell us more about this wonderful shelter that firmly aligns with our principles. Please help me welcome him.
Thank you very much for that introduction, and thank you all for having me here today, and good morning. I am Bart Berry. I'm the Director of Development at the Palm Springs Animal Shelter. I have been affiliated with the shelter for about 2 years now. I first started as a volunteer back in July of 2021 during the height of COVID, and joined the small dog team, which meant that every Monday and Friday morning I would join 3 or 4 other volunteers and walk all of the small dogs at the shelter. My position became available in November of 2021, and I joined the staff in December of that year. And I still continue as a volunteer leading the play group for about 10 to 15 small dogs every Monday and Friday morning. I'm very happy to be here today. We're always excited to share information about the shelter with our community. The Palm Springs Animal Shelter is the municipal shelter for the city of Palm Springs. We are an organization that started back in 1961 with the original shelter near Demuth Park in Palm Springs. We built our new building and moved in 2010. So we've been there about 12 years now, 13 years, I guess. And we are, like I said, the municipal shelter for the city of Palm Springs, which means that if somebody would like to surrender an animal, they, from the city of Palm Springs, they would bring that animal to the Palm Springs Animal Shelter. But we work with individuals throughout the Coachella Valley to provide them the opportunity to adopt animals and to take care of their animals. So anybody can come to the shelter and see what animals we have available. You'll see on your screen a number of animals that are currently available at the shelter. Right now, we have over 350 adoptable animals, which is pretty crazy for us. We are over capacity, and that's not unique to us. With COVID ending, with economic challenges being experienced by a lot of individuals, by HOAs changing policies for people who live in apartments and condominiums, lots of animals are being surrendered these days, particularly big dogs. So if you know of anybody in the community who is interested in looking to adopt an animal, whether it be a dog, a cat, we have turtles, we have guinea pigs, we have hamsters, we basically have everything at the shelter. Please invite them to come by and check out who we have available, because we really do need help to spread the word that there are a lot of animals that do need homes. And it's not just us, it's all of the shelters throughout the Coachella Valley, throughout California and beyond. So we really do appreciate that. In addition to providing opportunities for animals to be adopted, we have spay-neuter clinics where individuals can come in and bring their animals to get spayed and neutered. We have a weekly low-cost vaccination clinic where we give the opportunity for pet owners to come in, get their animals vaccinated for a fraction of the cost that they would pay at their veterinarian. We also have a TNR program, which is Trap, Neuter, Return for community cats. As many of you probably know, community cats run rampant throughout the Coachella Valley. And we have a program where we go out with a group of volunteers, we trap them, we bring them in, we medically evaluate them, we make sure that they're vaccinated, and we microchip them, and we spay and neuter them. We then take them back out to where they were trapped, so they go back to their environment, but it gives us an opportunity to help control the community cat population here in the Coachella Valley. And we do that with about 50 to 60 cats every single Friday and Saturday. So that's a very, very important program to us. That only is a fraction of the cats out there, but at least it's our opportunity to help control that population. We also are always in the need of volunteers. If you have extra time, we have over 500 volunteers right now that assist us in a variety of ways. So whether you want to interact with animals or humans or help us with community events, whatever it might be, if you do have some extra time, please go on our website at psanimalshelter.org and check us out and see what opportunities might exist. Tomorrow, something very unique is happening. For the first time ever, we've started a summer camp for kids, grades 1 through 6. So this week, it's grades 1 through 3, so we kick that off tomorrow. It's called Animal Camp, and this is an opportunity for about 15 kids, grades 1 through 3, to come in, learn all about animals. We have some field trips planned for them. They'll learn about animal behaviors. They'll have the opportunity to interact with animals. So this is something very new to us, and we're really, really excited about it. And then next week will be grades 4 through 6. Again, another group of about 15 kids will be coming in. So we're pretty excited about that. Like I said, we have a lot of big dogs right now. We have also a lot of kittens. There's something called kitten season in the Coachella Valley. I don't know if you ever heard that before, but kittens are beginning of April and the end of May, thousands of kittens are born in the Coachella Valley. And for some reason, hundreds of them end up at the Palm Springs Animal Shelter. So if you are in the market for a kitten or 2 or 3 or know anybody who is, again, please check us out because we really could use that help. That's really all I have to say right now. Thank you so much for this opportunity to speak with you. I appreciate the support. We are, like I said, we are the shelter for the city of Palm Springs, but the city only gives us about 28% of our budget, and our budget's about $4 million a year. So we have to raise over $2.5 million every single year to operate our shelter. So activities like this really, really help us a lot, and we really appreciate it. So thank you so much.
Remember always. Those are the joys and sorrows for today. Please join me in prayer and meditation. This is a quote of All Life is Beautiful by Brian Keeley. Spirit of life, if you have a lesson for us, it is that all life is beautiful. We are each born into this world who we are, tall or short, with our own color of skin, with our own sexual orientation. How can anyone ever tell us we are anything less than beautiful? Anything less than whole. We pray for those who are forced from their homelands and their cultures and their religions, not because of some fault or sin, but because of who they are, who are placed in grave danger simply for being the person they were born to be. We also pray for the enlightenment of governments here and around the world, who with casual disregard for life would deport those refugees back to their unfeeling homelands and near certain death. All human beings are born free, equal in dignity and rights. They are endowed with reason and conscience. May we all act towards one another in affirmation of our common humanity. For the next few moments, I'm going to be sliding between a few topics. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, it says right here, Spirit of Life. Please join me in Spirit of Life.
See
For the next few moments, I'm going to be sliding between a few topics, so stick with me. I spent the past 30 years as a massage therapist, and for many of those years, I would travel to your home, set up my table, give you a massage, your spouse a massage, your neighbor a massage. I would then fold up my table, load it in the car, and travel on to my next client. During the 4 years I wasn't traveling, I had an office and was extremely busy because of a newspaper article that had been written about me and published in the Desert Sun. On the window of this office, I had designed a poster with the image of a couple chasing a balloon with hills in the background and a warm sun in the corner. The inscription read, "Flexibility is the key to life." There were a lot of comments regarding the meaning of this mural, and I got quite a few drop-in clients because of it. Now, I've been a member of this church since 2006, and in that time I've been involved in quite a few committees and have taken part in quite a few of the classes that have been offered here. Last fall, I took a class called The Free Pulpit with our newly settled minister, Reverend Ian. The first homework assignment was to narrow down a few topics we could talk about and bring them back for discussion the next week. So that afternoon, I sat down with my little notebook and pencil and thought about it for a while. Determined to come up with any topic, I picked up my phone, went to the font of all knowledge, Google, and began to read the news. And there it was, the headline. I knew the minute I read it that the headline was the one for me. And the headline was, "Plane Destined to Hawaii Filled with Ukuleles." Below that was the subheadline reading, "Patrons interviewed were not thrilled. Some saw it as a flight from hell." It turned out that the flight originated in Long Beach, California, and was bound for Hawaii in the early afternoon. As the passengers boarded the plane, they found a brand new soprano ukulele on their seat, all tuned and ready to play. After they were all seated, the passengers were informed that there were 4 instructors on board and that this was an organized event by the airline and a guitar company who had teamed up to promote the ukulele and to increase the fun factor with this particular airline. The lessons began shortly after the first drinks were served. In the lesson, they were taught 3 chords, an E, a G, and an F. Then they were taught to strum the tune, and by the end of the flight, they knew the song Aloha and Goodbye and could play and sing it with confidence. Before landing, the passengers were asked to fill out a survey. Overwhelmingly, the responses were positive, and most of the comments talked about the amazingly fast flight that they had had, how they met new people, and that they had never had such a fun and joyful experience on an airplane. In the responses, there were 3 negative comments. 3 people who had not had a good time, didn't crack a smile, didn't get to know anyone, and didn't take home a new ukulele. There are very few times that pure joy comes into our lives. My philosophy is that not only do we have to recognize joy when it presents itself, but we must be able to give ourselves permission to experience deep joy. I think of the experience of joy to be a total immersion kind of thing. I'm thinking about the Van Gogh exhibit that was traveling through here just recently. Jane and I went when it was here, and I had looked forward to it with a great deal of anticipation. I think total immersion and totality and how it increases the influence of the statements the artist is making. And it allows you to experience the very edge of creativity. The tour through the maze was filled with music and lights, pictures and explanations of Van Gogh's personal history. When we turned into the Hall of Pictures, when I was able to let go and observe the paintings in their deepest colors and the vibrant and brilliant brush strokes that are Van Gogh, I understood some of the desperation that the man felt and had portrayed through his art. My mom was an artist. This is one of her works down here. She once had a one-woman show at the Bowers Museum in Santa Ana, which drew a large viewing audience. My personal art history has been heavily influenced by my mom's work. I watched it while it was being formed. My dad made all the frames, and those pieces hung in the house where I grew up. In fact, they hang in my house today. Van Gogh had a completely different vision of the human form than my mom did. And he captured the emotion that the face carries and the eyes. I make this comparison not because I think my mom was any great artist or anything, but I have to say I do compare other works to hers. Andrew Wyeth comes close. So I understand brushstroke and meaning and features, and I still love the immersion that was offered. I had never experienced art in that way, and now that I have, I think it's the most amazing discovery and a fascinating experience of the artist's way. But I want to get back to the airplane and the ukuleles for a moment. I want you to see in your mind's eye the joy and pure fun that I call total immersion. The laughter and gaiety, the silliness and laughter that lends itself to abandonment and mindless freedom of all who were on the plane that day. Mind you, they began the lessons with a drink under their belt, so the party was already underway. The point is, they had a blast. They had so much fun. The passengers will relate that story for years to come and probably drag out the ukuleles for all their friends to hear. Now again, in your mind's eye, envision the three people who did not have a good time. On the questionnaire, they were asked to name the reason for their travel. Those that disliked the journey had three very different stories. One was a woman whose son had been killed in the action of a war and was on her way to meet his body and escort it home. Another was a woman in her 30s working on deadline on a legal brief and was due in court the following morning. The other was a man who didn't like, want, or need a ukulele in his life. He hated the ukulele and thought he was on a flight from hell. Guess who they interviewed? As I've gotten older, the occurrence of joyful occasions seems to come less frequently. I don't know if it's because they really happen so few times that I stop recognizing them, or that I put myself in the position for joy less often, or that I've just become so cynical that joy is harder to recognize. I felt deep sorrow for the woman whose son had been killed. Joy will be a difficult place for her to find for a long time. I can certainly understand her reluctance to participate. It must have been a very difficult flight for her. But I have a question. What would have happened if she had dropped her mantle of grief and given herself permission to experience joy? No one on the plane knew she was preparing for her son's funeral. Instead of trying to lay low and ignore the noise and happiness going on around her, what would have happened if she had gone ahead and joined in the frivolity? Perhaps she would have found relief from her terrible depression, even if for a short time. She may have made a new friend or two and kept in touch with them and traveled with them, and they enriched her life so that her final years on this earth would have been worth living, even though her son had died in the most heartbreaking of fashions. I think about the second woman writing a legal brief for tomorrow. I'm sure she thought she would have a quiet 6 hours on that flight. When that option was no longer available, I think she had some choices. Join in and stay up another late night to finish the brief, or try to get some work done with all the noise going on, as if there's any place on an airplane to find quiet. Perhaps if she had joined the party, she would have met the person who would have given her the dream job she had been waiting for, or met the love interest she had always fantasized about. But nope, she missed it all and still had to stay up all night to finish that brief. And then I thought about the old grumpy guy. My dad was an old grumpy guy. His last few years, nothing and no one could make him happy. He would have hated that flight. Of course, 20 years before, he would have had a drink and been the life of the party. But because of his hearing loss and his macular degeneration, he became withdrawn from the world. I can only imagine the old grumpy guy that was on that flight from hell. Perhaps his hearing was bad and getting worse. Although joining in might have lightened his depression too. As I said, joy can be an elusive butterfly. It is sort of my understanding of quarks. A quark is a subatomic particle smaller than anything we can imagine. Staring at them causes them to divert and become invisible, only to appear elsewhere as if by magic. I imagine joy is like that. If I look for it, I have a difficult time recognizing it. It moves, frequently and suddenly. It comes when I least expect it to be there and refuses to show up when I expect to. I find myself sometimes still pondering the meaning of the mural I had made for my office. Flexibility is the key to life. As a young therapist, I firmly believed that if you stretched, lifted some weights, and walked more than just around the block, your life would be so much easier as you got older, because becoming stiff in the joints is not your friend. Lately, I have found additional use for the phrase flexibility is the key to life. Now, as a retired massage therapist with over 30 years' experience, I am of the firm belief that the flexibility I speak of must also exist in the brain and the heart and the gut. As a member of this church, I've seen lots of congregants pass through our doors, and a lot of them, like you, have stayed. In that time, I've noticed something quite remarkable. I've noticed that the more flexible a person is in their thinking, the longer they stay, and the more involved they become in our community. I was thrilled to find out at the end of April and the beginning of May saw our own Maxine Zebarth in Washington, D.C. sightseeing. For those of you who don't recognize our sweet Maxine, she's the one who just passed her 96th birthday. Becoming airborne with 180 strangers and winding up having 177 new friends must have something to do with joy. Having just experienced joy, your endorphins are raging with having had such a good time, and you know that that flight you were on was a heck of a good party. I think joy can be felt on a regular basis, consistently and with full notice. It must not be taken lightly or for granted. It must be nurtured and grown, much like a garden of hope. For what is joy but hope for the future? Flexibility is the key to life. Thank you. And if you'll stand and join me in What a Wonderful World.
And if you'll now join me in the words to extinguish our chalice as Mel does the extinguishing. Well done, Mel. As we extinguish this flame and leave this space made sacred by our presence, let's remember and try to live by these wise words from the Dalai Lama. Just one positive thought in the morning can change your whole day. And from his good friend Desmond Tutu, ultimately our greatest joy is when we seek to do good for others.
I want to thank all my friends who were on streaming this morning and here in the sanctuary. Thank you. Amen and blessed be by Forest Church. It is tempting to seek meaning not in what we have, but in what we desire. When we do this, we practice wishful thinking. Of the enemies that frustrate our search for meaning, this is perhaps the most traitorous. It places fulfillment forever beyond our reach in what we do not have, in what we cannot do, in who we shall never be. Meaning doesn't emerge from longing for what we lack, things we have lost or likely never find. We should wish to think instead of things closer at hand, like the sun's kiss good morning when it breaks through the blinds to inaugurate another miracle, another day. And this from the Dalai Lama. Happiness is not something ready-made. It comes from your own actions. And this from one of my favorites. It's a hell of a start, being able to recognize what makes you happy. Lucille Ball. Thank you.
Yes. I'm just singing along, quiet. Thank you.